Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our first NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNola.com. There isn't much you can say about the Saints getting whipped in Arlington by the Dallas Cowboys, except for the fact that they got whipped in virtually every phase. This was not a competitive game. This was a major disappointment. And Lenny, maybe it's a portend of things to come. I think we all overestimated this football team.
I think that's obviously the case at this point. There's still 12 games to go. There's a lot of time to turn things around. The Carolina Panthers were sitting at 1-3 after 4 games a year ago and ended up winning the division. Things can change, but just based on what you've seen thus far, we've seen an offense that is, I don't want to say sputtering is the right word, but it's been very inconsistent. It can look like it did in the first 2 drives of the fourth quarter and be very outstanding, and then there are times when it can be very shaky. The defense thus far, over 1,500 yards allowed, another chunk of yardage on Sunday night, much like they did in the opener against Atlanta. And the second possession of the season, they got a takeaway on a Jarris Bird strip and a Corey White fumble recovery. No turnovers since. You can't win with that combination right there. In fact,
last in the league.
Yeah, last in the league in takeaways. Only 10 teams have had fewer than or 1 or 0 takeaways through 4 games in the history of the league, and only 2 teams have allowed the kind of yardage the Saints have allowed with only 1 takeaway, the other one being the 2010 Buffalo Bills. So that in my mind is the first thing that's got to get corrected. You've got to make some things happen on the defensive end. Now, a lot of things go hand in hand. If you're playing from behind, it changes what you do on offense. If you're playing at a tight game, it changes what you can do on defense. We saw in the fourth quarter of the Minnesota game, when you're playing with a lead, and in that case an inexperienced quarterback, what Rob Ryan was able to dial up defensively, and get some pressure out there. Did not create any turnovers, but he was able to get some pressure. The time and the score, I understand, does dictate those sort of things. But still in all, as Sean Payton's mentor Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are. And right now the Saints are a 1-3 football team.
Yeah, when you are 2-9 in your last 11 road games, it's because you're not good on the road, and they are not good on the road. They can't block, they can't tackle, and they can't take care of the football or take it away. It's a recipe for failure, and obviously that continues to be the case. So many troubling things about this game, Lenny. I know a lot of people thought they came out flat. Maybe that was true. I think it was more a matter of they didn't match the intensity of the Cowboys, who were very, very motivated, obviously. Why? I don't know. But beyond that, there were many other problems, at least 6 drops in this football game by receivers. Again, the missed tackles were glaring across the board, and the lack of urgency. They went to hurry up, and many people were tweeting across the country, why didn't they try this a little bit earlier when they finally had some success?
Yeah, this is something. The whole hurry-up concept is something that Sean Payton used a little bit in earlier years, and we really haven't seen it as much lately. But clearly, when this team plays with a little tempo, you saw a little bit of a different mindset, swagger, whatever it is you want to call it, out there, and maybe just what you saw there, maybe you will see a little more of it. Sean Payton's a guy who can learn from what others do and what his own team does. They self-scout quite a bit, so maybe you will see, those types of things. The missed tackles, obviously, it's a concern, and it's like I know you made the point last night on Twitter. Do these guys practice tackling? This is one of the hazards of what the collective bargaining agreement allows. You can only have in the course of an NFL regular season, I think it's something like 12 or 13 total practices from the opener to the end of the year in pads. You got to pick your spots when you want to actually go out there and hit in practice, and it's hard to do when you're not in pads. If you're just out there in shells or you're out there in shorts and helmets, you're not going to be practicing tackling in those situations. So that is a problem. It was a problem in the Atlanta game. It was certainly a problem Sunday night, and be interested to see the final numbers when they come out in terms of the number of missed tackles there actually were, because there were a lot of them in that game.
Yeah, regardless of practice, good tackling is good tackling, and tackling to a large degree is attitude. And right now we don't see enough of that, obviously, where the Saints are concerned. Tampa Bay's up next this coming Sunday. We keep saying must-wins. Well, obviously, quintessential must-win here. You can't go 1-4. LSU took care of business in their final scrimmage of the year, as we like to call it. And, of course, there was a story here, and that is the play of Brendan Harris. And the play of all the freshmen, really, that were incredibly productive, including Leonard Fournette, Malachi Dupree before halftime, but he dinged his ankle, didn't come back. But certainly the story is Brendan Harris and the way he played, and Brandon Harris really should be the starter.
He should, but will he? Well, that part remains to be seen. 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns. That's as good as you can get out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play this. I think regardless of whether Harris is the starter or Jennings is the starter, you're going to see a lot more of Harris going forward. I think you have to. Now, we know Les Miles can be, shall we say, stubborn when it comes to making coaching decisions. Case in point, January 9th, 2012, we saw, what happened in the national championship game. But still in all, the results are out there on the field. This offense is a better offense with Brandon Harris at quarterback. Is Anthony Jennings perhaps a better game manager, more experienced, can run the offense, change plays better? All of those things, very possible. But results are results, and Brandon Harris had the results Saturday night.
And LSU is going to have to score points to win at Auburn based upon the Auburn offense and the way LSU's defense has played against the better teams this year. So that's pretty obvious, and I think the answer is obvious. But will it be so obvious to Les Miles? We'll see. Tulane, another debilitating road loss, only scored 6 points. And Lenny, a lot of people had clamored for a change of quarterback because of the turnovers by Tanner Lee. Now we know why Curtis Johnson stuck with Tanner Lee. With all due respect to Devin Powell and Nick Montana, Tanner Lee's the best quarterback they have and gives them the best chance to win.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what his status is going to be. And he left with a shoulder injury, and they get a bye week. So get a chance to rest up and get well before UConn comes in a week from Saturday, their first home conference game. So what will they do? I would imagine, Lee is probably going to continue to be the quarterback if he is healthy. The one encouraging thing coming out of Saturday, you talk about a team like the Saints who can't force turnovers. Tulane's been committing turnovers, but they didn't commit any on Saturday. So if you could play turnover free, you at least give yourself a half a chance in the battle, so to speak. And Sherman Beatty again popping another big play. It's the second, or really the third long run we've seen out of him this year. 86 yards for a touchdown for the only score.
He's really good. And from my perspective, I think they need to pare down their rotation in the backfield. Sherman Beatty's got to touch the ball at least 15 times a game, and LeZedrick Thompson is a strong inside runner. I think you've got your combo there, with all due respect to Dante Butler and Dontrell Hilliard, whom you can spot at times, but it seems to be an epidemic, right, in college football. Everybody wants to play 4 backs or so, and to me, listen, when your better players are not in the game, it doesn't help your football team.
And look where Curtis Johnson came from. He came from the Sean Payton system, and outside of year one when Deuce McAllister was constantly getting the football, it's been pretty much running back by committee down on Airline Drive. So it works, but you're right. You got to, when you have a disparity there, or a seemingly disparate situation in talent, you got to get the best guys on the field.
And finally, high school football. You can check out our sportsnola.com top 10 polls for week number 5. One change, and that is Neville moving in at number 1 in 4A after Warren Easton was upset at Woodlawn. Of course, the others stay the same. Rummel in 5A, John Curtis in 3A, Catholic New Iberia in 2A, Haynesville in 1A. And, of course, our first NBC Bank Prep Showcase will continue this weekend with a couple of good games.
Yeah, we're doubling down this weekend. 2 great games. You got the great rivalry in the river parishes, Destrehan and Hahnville. Friday night at Destrehan, we'll have it live at sportsnola.com. And then Saturday night at Tad Gorman, we will have St. Aug and John Curtis. Renewal of an unbelievable game, arguably the best game of the year in New Orleans prep football last year.
Look forward to it. And, of course, Sports NOLA TV, Monday night, 6 p.m., WHNO Channel 20. We'll break it all down, and we look forward to doing so. Lenny, as always, thank you, and have yourself a great week.
All right, we'll see you later this week.
That's our first NBC Bank Prep Showcase coming up this weekend, and that's our first NBC Bank Prep review and overall review. And, of course, First NBC Bank has 32 banks locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. I'm confused, so I'm shutting up. God bless you. Have a great week.